To some people, the 1980s might seem like a long time ago, and for others, it might seem like it was just yesterday. But I think that one thing that we can all agree on is that the 1980s were definitely one of the most memorable decades in history. A lot of awesome movies that I know people still watch, including me today, came from the 1980s, and then definitely a lot of music icons came from the 1980s. But one of the most memorable things about the 1980s to me was definitely the fashion. Whenever I think about fashion in the 1980s, I just really think about the bright colors and the bold fashion statements from it, but also the variety. It wasn't just men wore this and women wore this and children wore this, or that, certain age groups of those genders wore this. Everybody had their own style, and that's what made it so awesome. A few things that came from the women's was, one, definitely the menswear for work. Women took men's suits with the shoulder pads and put a feminine spin on them and kind of made the suits a more, normal thing for the working women to wear every day. And of course, another thing that came for women in the 1980s was the neon. Neon everything. And this is why I think it's definitely the most colorful decade in history. Neon pink, neon blue, neon orange, green, whatever color you can name it. They had neon. It was bright. And so, actually, a lot of makeup companies came out with neon makeup to match it. So the women weren't just decked out in neon on their clothes, their face was decked out in neon too. So definitely a bright fashion statement. And then there was kind of the preppy style for women in the 1980s. And a lot of the preppy style women, you could find them wearing the knee socks and the button-up shirts with the sweaters over them and the pencil skirts. That was definitely, I think, the picture of the preppy style in the 1980s for women. And another huge thing for the women in the 1980s was the workout clothes. The workouts and the workout videos became huge in the 1980s, and so did the fashion choices. So if there was a woman working out, she was most likely going to be wearing the leotard and the leggings and the leg warmers, all that jazz. So that was definitely one of the most memorable fashion statements for women in the 1980s, I think. And then there were the accessories for women. I love that there's just those few accessories that you can really see and then just instantly think about the 1980s. For instance, the gloves that they wore day to day no matter what, and then the scrunchies, which are actually coming back, and then the headbands. The headbands were a huge thing for women in the 1980s. They had the thick headbands or the scarves. No matter what, headbands were a huge deal for women in the 1980s. The men also had a lot of different styles during the 1980s. They also had a preppy style, which the typical preppy style men, you could see them wearing things like the sweater vests and the penny loafers and the Oxford button downs, and of course, which my dad participated in this, the polo shirts with the collars popped up. So that was definitely the preppy style for men. And then there was the music inspired. There was a lot of music icons, like I said, and then a lot of people started dressing like their music icons. There was the leather jackets, the torn t-shirts, and the studded boots, and then the hip-hop phase, which that's where the sneakers and the parachute pants and the gold chains came from, which were actually still around today in hip-hop. And then men just had a kind of a casual style. And the casual style, when I think of, is kind of the t-shirts under the nicer jackets, and the pushed-up sleeves, and then just the loafers and boat shoes with no socks. And then the children even had a variety of fashion choices in the 1980s. A few big things for younger boys in the 1980s were the baseball t-shirts with the cartoon or the icon on them. The denim jeans were a big thing. The sweatsuits with the matching sweatshirt and pants, and then the knit pullovers. A few things that were big for younger girls in the 1980s were the bibbed dresses, the corduroy overalls, which of course were colorful, and then the pleated skirts with the matching sweaters. All of these styles and fashion statements that you can just relate directly with the 1980s are just definitely the reason that I think it is the most memorable decade for fashion.